What's going on, gentlemen? Welcome back. So, we talked about meaning before, and we talked about how language failed us. You know, this tool that we have called language failed us. To the point where, you know, we can't really differentiate between one thing and the other. And so, this, of course, you know, it led to a crisis in meaning, right? A crisis in which we cannot define what the world around us, the world around us, is like. But we can also, and you know, worst of all, we can't define who we are. You know, this search for the essential qualities of an individual. You know. It's just, you know, it's now, thanks to postmodernism, an impossibility. And so we've had to accept the fact, you know, we have had to endure the burden of having to accept the fact that, you know, if we can't define who we are, right, then the only thing that's left is for us to define ourselves. You see? And no one else can define you, right? No one else can define who you are. And so what matters is, you know, how do you define yourself, right? How do you identify yourself? How do you identify yourself? Let's think about that for a moment. How do you identify yourself? Right? And especially if no one else can identify you, right? Because, you know, if it's nearly impossible, if not impossible for you to identify yourself, right? Then how is it even remotely possible for someone else to identify you? So then there's the idea, the concept that, hey, you know, no one else can define me, right? No one else can identify me, and no one else can define me, because even I, you know, who knows himself best or herself best, right? Or itself best, or however you want to define yourself. You know, even an individual is incapable of defining himself. So how can others identify who they are, right? And so what matters here, you know, the only thing that is left for us to do is to identify ourselves. How do you identify yourself? You know, how do you identify yourself? And so if tomorrow I want to be, say, for example, white, right? If tomorrow I want to identify myself as white, regardless of the fact that I have an accent when I speak English, then it's within my right to identify myself as white, and no one else can define me. You see, no one else has that ability to say, hey, you're not white. You see, because that'll be offensive. It'll be offensive to who I am. You know, if I tomorrow or even today, if I at this very moment choose to identify myself as a white victim of, you know, cultural appropriation, you see, when my culture is being destroyed, right? And I want to play the victim card, you know, the white victim card, you know, the white conservative victim card, where my culture is being destroyed, then no one else can define me. You see, no one else has a right to do that. Because what's the difference between an apple and an orange? Or what's the difference between an apple and a pear? You see? This is very difficult. It's very complex. And I have all sorts of reasons that I can use that to justify, you know, that I am who I say I am. You see? Because again, no one else knows me more than I know myself. I can say, well, you know, I've seen this country more than anybody else, perhaps, you know, than 99% of other people in my 19 years of trucking. Or I can say, you know, I enjoy eating certain foods, you know, or there's a white gene somewhere in my DNA. You see, so I can identify myself the way I want to identify myself, and no one else has a right to claim otherwise. You see, and so that's just how it is. And don't you dare offend me. You see, so, and the other thing is, I don't need any reasons. I really don't need any reasons to identify myself as a white conservative who is who has become a victim of cultural appropriation. You see? And so, and because I don't have to have a reason, you see, because things are, you know, generally undefinable, then I can be whoever I want to be without reason. You see? Without reason. I can be whoever I want to be. And again, don't you dare go against that, because there's trouble to be had. The other thing about this postmodern ideology is that, you know, throughout history, we have noted that, well, you know, those ideals, right, of modernism, not postmodernism, but modernism. You know, the thinking patterns that evolved after the Reformation, right? And the Counter-Reformation of the Church. You see, the idea that we could, you know, leave this old world behind, you know, a world of war, a world of complexity, you see, and move on to something much more simple. You see, it even showed in our, you know, in the structures that we put together, right? The you know, the plain walls in the modern buildings, you know, the glass towers, as opposed to those very complex, dark, you know, that very complex and dark form of architecture, such as you know, Gothic architecture, the Gothic cathedrals that the church had put together for us. You know, all those ideals, they were to be left behind for something much more simple. You see, especially after World War II, we wanted simplicity more than anybody else, than anything else, because this old world had failed us. It had brought us together at war, you know, for 2 world wars. These old ideas, you know, had failed us. And so what do we do, right? What do we do? If reason leads to war, and if faith doesn't solve war, then you know, do we really need reason, right? If reason has brought us to genocide, right, as in the case of the Holocaust, then who needs a reason for anything? And so I don't need a reason to be white. I don't have to explain to anybody why I'm white, you know. And, you know, whoever opposes me, I have a right to simply just do away with them. Why? Because, well, you know, they're attacking me, and so these ideas of you know, freedom and democracy, they're old ideas. You see, the idea of, you know, a due process of law. You see, those are ideas that have failed us. They have failed us, and what we have seen throughout history is actually, you know, groups of people, right, that have come together to defend their current ideology. That's what we've seen throughout history, you see, and the, you know, these other ideas, they're all just artificially created ideas that don't really resemble reality, you see, and because they don't resemble reality, we have a, you know, it's within our domain to simply ignore or destroy them, to do away with them as we wish, you see. And so the new paradigm is the same that's ever been, you see. That's the same paradigm that's really always been true. We come together as groups, and whoever opposes us, you know, gets the hot end of it. End of story. There is no due process of law. There is no, you know, no one else there to dictate who we are. You see, only we can define ourselves. And if I'm white and other people say that I'm not, then, you know, it's within my domain to destroy those people. End of story.